Hi guys, my name is Jack Garratt and I'm here to kind of take you guys through how I use the Roland SPD-SX in my live setup. So I've been doing the original setup that I used to have when I didn't have lots of other things. About 2.5 years ago I put together my live set, and it was originally just a keyboard, one of these laptop pads, and then the Roland SPD-SX. And I didn't really know anything about the SPD-SX other than it was just a really decent piece of kit for drummers and for uploading and using samples and different kinds of drum triggers and stuff like that. And I'd seen videos of drummers using it as electronic drum kits rather than having kind of bigger ones. It was just a good, concise, efficient drum pad to have. I managed to get my hands on one and just kind of went a bit crazy with it, tried to find a way to use it that made sense for what I was trying to do. And what I was trying to do was just play lots of things at the same time because I couldn't afford to put a band together. The first thing I did was, after having already got my keyboard and everything, was getting one of these. I was making like electronic music at the time, or just started making electronic music and really started producing my own material, and wanted to find a way that would of playing it live, a way that I would be able to like accurately get the best sound possible from these recordings that I took so much pride over, having that kind of same amount of pride be shown when I was doing it live. And the best way to go about it was by using this thing. I use it in the same way I think a lot of other people do, or a lot of other drummers do, where I, again, before I had an acoustic kit, would upload certain samples onto it, so like acoustic kicks and acoustic hats and kind of cross stick samples and stuff, and all of those samples taken from recordings I'd made of the songs that I'd been producing. But then on top of that, I also use it to kind of upload much longer samples, things that I still trigger myself because I don't play to a click or I don't have anything gridded. I used it to kind of upload much longer samples, things like synths for choruses where I didn't have synths, and like piano lines for when it was impossible for me to play the piano as well as playing the bass and the drums at the same time. So things like, for example, on a song of mine called The Love You're Given, having this whole thing looped up and ready to go in the background of everything. And then all I need to do is fill in the necessary gaps. That was the original way that I decided to put everything together. That was 2.5 years ago, when all I had was a stereo output on this and then just a keyboard and my head to try and figure it all out. Now that things have kind of gone bigger and I can do lots more things, we're using this in a really interesting and kind of different way. When this whole rig was getting built, I remember the guys who were building it, who's two really good friends of mine who I've been kind of touring with and fine-tuning this whole thing with. When they were building this, they were asking people questions about how to use this in the way that we were trying to use it, and how to use it kind of efficiently and properly in use with Ableton, which is what I run the show off of. And all these questions that they were asking were being answered by people who didn't know what we were talking about, which kind of made us think that maybe we were doing something people hadn't necessarily done before, which, as it turns out, was kind of what was happening. So yeah, so that was kind of the original thing that I was trying to do with the keyboard and with the SPD-SX and trying to make this live show. Now that things have kind of gotten bigger, I've been lucky enough to use the SPD-SX in a kind of more interesting way. I've been able to branch out a little bit more. So now I'm using like 2 of the BT triggers, which are really good fun. And just what kind of opens things up for me a little bit and means I'm able to have a couple more samples that I didn't have the space to fit in before on tracks that I wasn't. So like that's a sub drop for Coalesce or Synesthesia Part 2 from the album, which I use kind of in the big final build up moment of the whole thing. With a nice cross-stick clacky thing, because I'd love putting that everywhere in all of my songs apparently. See, a lot of people I know use actual Roland kick pedals or electronic kick pedals with the beater and the pad and the stuff and the rubbish, and I kind of can't get my head around it. So instead I'm just using the FS5U, which is the unlatched pedal that Roland have, and that's pretty much my kick pedal. I just have it for everything. But yeah, so that's the FS5U that I'm using. I'm also using that as my sustain pedal for the keyboard. And then for my guitar, I've got the Chromatic Tuner, the TU3, which is great, standard, good, love it. And then also the Super Octave, the OC3, which I've had. This is the one I bought when I was putting the original set together. Yeah, this is the same one I've had for about 2.5 years. And I only use that on like one song, just to kind of beef up the low end of it. I don't really use it for anything else other than as a very distant, very kind of background effect. But it's a great pedal for lots of other uses, but I've just got it on one song for one thing. And then on top of that, I've got the FS5L, which is the latched pedal that Roland do, which toggles on and off my reverb on my amp. Those are the only Boss pedals I'm using currently. But there's a couple I've got my eye on that hopefully I'll be using soon, but we'll see. But yeah, that's kind of mostly, well, that's all the Roland stuff that kind of makes up the setup. It's all the stuff that I'm using in a way that just seems natural and necessary. I've not kind of tried to do it in the way that other people have done it before. Instead, we've just tried to build this setup by using these things in a way that seems logical to us. And that's the beautiful thing about the SPD-SX, is that it kind of opens and lends itself out to people to be able to use it in a way that it wasn't originally intended for, which is exactly how I think we're using it. But it is the brain. Yeah, I love it. I love this thing.